What if the Golden State Warriors and the Cleveland Cavaliers do not make the 2017 NBA Finals? Going into the 2016-2017 NBA season, people have already set in stone that the Golden State Warriors and the Cleveland Cavaliers will dominate their conferences and will advance once again to the NBA Finals for the third consecutive year. But what if, by chance, neither team make it to the championship round? To you, that might sound crazy, but in this video, I will attempt to give a legitimate argument for a couple of teams I believe can overtake Golden State and Cleveland in their conferences next season. Let's first begin examining the teams from the Eastern Conference. The Boston Celtics. Last season, the Celtics were the fifth youngest team in the league, finishing off the season with a respectable record of 48 wins and 34 losses, but were eliminated early in the first round by the evenly matched Atlanta Hawks in 6 games. Going into this year's NBA offseason, the Boston Celtics knew that they needed to make a substantial upgrade in their front court in order to balance their starting lineup. And they did just that with the impressive free agent signing of a 4-time NBA All-Star big man, Al Horford. Horford instantly boosts their front court from average to elite, especially when you consider his ability to score from all areas of the court, whether it's from long range or below the basket. Also, with the rise of Isaiah Thomas making his first All-Star appearance and first-team All-Defensive guard Avery Bradley, the Celtics have one of the best backcourts in the association. Not to mention, one of the best coaches around in a young Brad Stevens. Their youth and versatility will give any team a run for their money. The Indiana Pacers. Finishing 7th in the East last year with a 45-37 record, the Pacers pushed the Toronto Raptors to a 7-game series, but ultimately came up short despite an impressive first-round performance. Indiana fans have to be feeling good after having their superstar small forward Paul George play in 81 of their 82 games in the regular season, considering his previous year's devastating leg injury. With George at 100% and their up-and-coming big Miles Turner showing great promise, the Pacers managed to improve their roster with great additions in All-Star point guard Jeff Teague, who averaged 16 points and 6 assists last season. Also, Al Jefferson, a proven veteran big man who can be a very solid anchor off the bench, and Thaddeus Young, who can produce a double-double on any given night. The Pacers have great depth through their roster top to bottom, and I believe they can be one of the more dangerous teams next year. The Toronto Raptors. With the second best record in the East at 56-26 and finishing first in the Atlantic Division for the third time in a row, the Raptors managed to have their best overall season in franchise history. They then topped it off with their first appearance to the Eastern Conference Finals, where they won 2 awe-inspiring games against the champion Cavaliers. Toronto didn't conjure up any major offseason acquisitions, but they will head into next season with the majority of their last year's roster intact. They signed their all-star shooting guard, DeMar DeRozan, and their trustworthy head coach, Dwayne Casey, to long-term contracts, while still having one of the best all-around floor leaders in Kyle Lowry. I believe the Raptors are hungry and ready to make a monstrous push to the NBA Finals. The New York Knicks and the Chicago Bulls made some huge splashes in free agency, which include the signings of Derrick Rose and Joakim Noah to the Knicks, and Dwayne Wade and Rajon Rondo to the Bulls. While I do believe they will be solid playoff caliber teams, the teams I mentioned previously, I believe, have greater depth and more proven track records. And now I think it's safe to say that the Cavaliers might not have a for sure lock on the Eastern Conference like everyone seems to think. Now it's time to look at the Western Conference. The Los Angeles Clippers. The Clippers last season looked as if they were ready to make a strong push in last year's playoffs after finishing 4th in the West with a convincing 53 wins. But suffering injuries to their superstar point guard Chris Paul, who broke his hand in Game 4 of the first round, and a left leg injury to their star power forward Blake Griffin, Los Angeles was defeated in 6 games to a young, surprising Trailblazer squad. This offseason, the Clippers signed big man Maurice Spates, a more than capable forward/center who last year came off the bench for Golden State, and 6'10" power forward, and an NCAA first-team All-American Bryce Johnson, who showed flashes of great potential during this year's Summer League. Those two signings should help fortify an already impressive front court, led by a top talented center in DeAndre Jordan. Also, with the re-signings of Jamal Crawford, Wesley Johnson, and Austin Rivers, the Clippers are looking to redeem themselves from last year's disappointing playoffs and are ready to go head-to-head with any team that stands in their way. The San Antonio Spurs. The mature and experienced Spurs capped off last year's regular season with a spectacular record of 67 wins, the most in franchise history. If it weren't for the Warriors' insane record-breaking season, the Spurs would have went into last year's playoffs the best team in the West. But despite the successful year, they ultimately fell short to a youthful and versatile Oklahoma City team in 6 games in the West semifinals. With the retirement announcement of all-time NBA and San Antonio great Tim Duncan, the Spurs brought in the perfect replacement in 2-time NBA champion big man Pau Gasol to play alongside their star power forward LaMarcus Aldridge. Led by an elite two-way player Kawhi Leonard and the return of veteran guards Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker, San Antonio will predictably be a top contender in next year's playoff race. Shepherded by the legendary head coach Greg Popovich, the Spurs will use their intelligent defense and elite team play to outperform their opponents. The Oklahoma City Thunder. Now I know what you're thinking. How could a team who were just defeated by the Warriors with Kevin Durant beat the same team who just signed Kevin Durant? It might seem like a long shot, but I think when you still have the most vicious and explosive player in the game on your team in point guard Russell Westbrook, and have a very solid young core which include imposing center Steven Adams and newly acquired guard Victor Oladipo who can score and defend. Despite the loss of their superstar Kevin Durant, I believe the Thunder will surprise a lot of critics and have a great season, especially with Westbrook, who wants to prove he's the best player in the NBA. The Portland Trail Blazers. The Blazers shocked a lot of people last year with how good they actually were, led by star point guard Damian Lillard and most improved player CJ McCollum. They finished last season with a 44-win record and finished 5th in the West, and went on to the Western semifinals against the Golden State Warriors, but they lost in a very competitive 5-game series. They didn't have the offseason they were hoping for going into free agency, but they did manage to pick up a couple solid pieces for next year, which include small forward Evan Turner, who can free up Lillard and McCollum for having too much ball handling responsibility, and center Festus Ezeli, who will bring much needed post defense to their front line, while re-signing a plethora of key rotation players in Allen Crabbe, Mo Harkless, and Myers Leonard. Their solid team chemistry and stellar play by their all-star snub guard Damian Lillard, along with the Coach of the Year snub Terry Stotts. I think they can compete with any team, and I can see Rip City making another surprising run next season. Now don't get me wrong, the Golden State Warriors and the Cleveland Cavaliers are still the obvious favorites going into next year. But in my opinion, there are still a handful of franchises I believe can still have a chance to compete with them. Regardless, I can't wait for next season. I know it will be must-watch basketball all year round. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more.